B Soul's doing a part 2?
Is this a fake video?
So last week, I did a video on 25 NBA players who were supposed to be stars that just didn't pan out to be one. And I said in that video that if that video did well, I would do a part 2, and it did. So thank y'all for the love on that video. Let's keep it up for this one because B Soul's in July. Y'all are gonna want to stay tuned on the channel for what's to come. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. But without further ado, let's cut to the chase. Y'all know the drill. Let's go ahead and start this video off with Marshawn Brooks. Marshawn Brooks was one of the many next Kobe Bryants. Now, when the Celtics drafted him in 2011 and traded him to New Jersey to draft Jajuan Johnson, low-key in my head, I was thinking, man, I swear to God, if we just pulled what the Hornets did with Kobe, I'm done. Now, Marshawn actually had a pretty solid rookie year, being the starter for the New Jersey Nets. But the season after, they acquired Joe Johnson, and Marshawn was moved to the bench and didn't play well at all. And then he was traded back to the Celtics as part of the Paul Pierce KG trade, and he was pretty much at the G League the whole time. And then he was traded to the Warriors at some point in the season, and then the Lakers, and then went overseas for the next couple of years until 2018 when he made a comeback as a 29-year-old on a 10-day contract for the Memphis Grizzlies, where he actually played really good, averaging 20 points in 7 games. He was moved to the bench, however, the season after, and went back to averaging 7 points a game, and he is now playing overseas once again. Now, at the time, the 2016 NBA draft was viewed as Ben Simmons, Brandon Ingram, and everyone else. And after the Kristaps craze from the season before, many thought that Dragon Bender was that next guy up, being that foreign big man who can shoot and has guard-like skills. Now, luckily, the Celtics didn't draft him and instead drafted Jaylen Brown, which was actually a hot pick at the time, but who did were the Phoenix Suns. And it did not take long for everyone to realize that he wasn't good. In his first year, he averaged a mere 3 points a game and never started and only played 43 games due to injury problems. The season after, they gave him double the minutes and more starting time, and he averaged still just 7 points and 4 rebounds as a power forward. And then 2 years later, the Suns declined his team option, and then he signed a minimum deal with the Bucks, where he was waived in February this year. The Warriors picked him up as a 10-day contract, where he's putting up career highs of 9 points and 6 rebounds a game. Now, Markelle Fultz was the unanimous #1 overall pick of the 2017 draft, and rightfully so. Going into the draft, Markelle was viewed as a 6'4" combo guard with elite handles and elite scoring ability. Now, it was a mystery for a long time exactly what happened. Some said that some shooting coach really screwed with Markelle's jump shot, but Markelle later clarified that the shoulder injury he suffered 4 games into his career really affected his ability to shoot the ball the way he used to prior to being drafted. And because of this weird injury, in just his second year, Markelle Fultz was traded to the Orlando Magic. The 2020 season is the first real healthy season for Markelle, where he's putting up 12 points and 5 assists as the starting point guard for the Orlando Magic. And hopefully, he can continue to develop there and keep building this season, because he still has a lot of potential and a lot of time left. Derrick Williams was the consensus #2 pick of the 2011 draft when he was drafted by the Minnesota Timberwolves. He was touted as a very versatile and athletic forward after averaging 20 points and 8 rebounds on 60% from the field in Arizona, but his skills just never translated into the NBA. He wasn't a good enough shot creator or shooter to make any impact from the perimeter, and it wasn't like he was this beast of an inside presence, and he wasn't a good defender really. He only played 2 seasons in Minnesota before bouncing around the NBA as an 8-point per game guy off the bench, and he ended his career in 2018 playing a grand total of 8 minutes for the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, Denzel Valentine had a tremendous college career and was a fan favorite in the 2016 draft after averaging 19 points, 8 assists, and 8 rebounds while shooting 45% from 3 on 8 attempts a game in his senior year. A decent amount of people thought that despite not being a one and done, his skills would translate very well to the next level and that he was more NBA ready than a lot of players in that draft. However, so far in his career, he's been a subpar bench player for the Chicago Bulls, with his best year being in 2018 where he averaged 10 points and 5 rebounds while shooting very well from 3. However, he was sidelined for the season after due to an injury, and this season he's back. However, he's not really doing anything special. He's putting up numbers very similar to his rookie year, putting up 7 points a game off the bench with mediocre efficiency. Y'all remember Dougie McBuckets? After a dominant senior year in Creighton where he averaged 27 points and 7 rebounds on insane shooting splits, Dougie McBucket's stock went up for the NBA draft. While he doesn't have the athleticism, and he still doesn't, you don't just average 27 points a game in college for no reason. And in the 2014 draft, the Chicago Bulls traded their 16th and 19th pick for him when the Nuggets drafted him at 11, and needless to say, the numbers did not translate to NBA stardom. Mind you, the 16th and 19th pick ended up being Gary Harris and Yusuf Nurkic. But going back to Doug McDermott, in his first 2 years in Chicago, he averaged 8 points a game and started in just 4 games out of 117. And by his third year, he was traded to OKC and was a journeyman player for a couple of years. The last 2 years, however, he's been a decent bench player for the Pacers, giving you 7 to 10 points a game on great efficiency from 3. Ricky Rubio was Luka Doncic before Luka Doncic, as some regarded him as the best European prospect ever, as he had an extremely successful overseas career and was playing professional basketball at the age of 14 and gained comparisons to Pete Maravich and even Steve Nash because of his insane feel for the game, his ball handling, and his passing abilities. However, after being drafted by the Timberwolves in 2009, he didn't play until 2012 because of contractual obligations and other issues that surrounded his situation in Spain. But when he did come to the league, he played as we expected him to be, being a great passer off the jump, averaging 11 points, 8 assists, and 2 steals a game. And while Rubio has been a fantastic passer every single year of his career, he never really improved to be that star level player. You know, that next Steve Nash, next Pete Maravich type of player. He's giving you a consistent 10 to 12 points, 8 to 9 assists, and 2 steals a game. However, the past couple years, he's actually made a decent stride in his 3-ball, but like I said, despite being a very solid starting point guard, he never became that star level player everyone thought he could be. When I first saw Thon Maker, I thought he was it. Go watch his Baller's Life mixtape from 2012. I can't show it on here for copyright reasons, but go ahead and watch it and tell me you wouldn't think the same thing. When you see a 16-year-old with those skills, I do not blame you for thinking he's gonna be a bona fide NBA star. And when Milwaukee drafted him in 2016, I was like, I know the Bucks don't just have Giannis and Thon Maker now, but they did take a chance on him. However, he just didn't work out, averaging 5 points and 3 rebounds a game in his first 2 years there. And in 2019, he was traded from the Milwaukee Bucks to Detroit, where he's been putting up the exact same numbers. He is still only 22 and he still has time to develop, but he's been in the league for 4 years regardless. And he has to show some strides or some type of progress soon. Evan Turner was the consensus number 2 pick of the 2010 draft after averaging 29 and 6 at Ohio. Many thought that he'd be a great combo guard in the NBA, but again, like the theme of this series, it never came to happen. He was slowly making improvements in his first 3 years, but they were never really anything substantial and he didn't have the star-like impact that the Sixers drafted him to be. His best season was in 2014 where he averaged 17 points for the Sixers for the first half of the season, but was then later traded to Indiana where he was put on the bench. Now he's had some good stints in Boston, but ever since then he's just been generally viewed as a solid backup combo guard, and this season he's now 31 years old, averaging 3 points off the bench for the Atlanta Hawks. Now Avery Bradley was not a player drafted to be a star, but after Paul Pierce and KG were traded to the Nets, he was given a bigger role on the Celtics and he stepped up, quickly becoming a solid 15 to 16 point per game scorer and one of the best. Some viewed him as the best on-ball defender in the league. I know y'all remember the way he locked up Kyrie Irving at times, which is extremely hard to do. But all that Avery Bradley hype went away fast after he was traded to Detroit to clear up cap space and make room for Gordon Hayward, and he just didn't nearly have the same impact as he did on the Boston Celtics on the Detroit Pistons. However, as we know, Avery Bradley is now the starting guard for the Los Angeles Lakers and has made a resurgence as being a solid starting point guard in the league, and recently in the news, along with Kyrie Irving, has been the leader of talking about the issues when it comes to the NBA return in July. Now, I'm not gonna lie, MKG was a highly touted prospect at the time, and I guess the hopes was for him to be a very solid two-way wing in the NBA, but I just never thought it would translate that well, given that he really didn't have much of an offensive game, and looking at his NBA career, that's exactly how it panned out, as MKG was never more than a 10-point and 6 to 7 rebound guy, which are very solid numbers for a starting small forward. His best season was in 2015 where he put up 11 points and 8 rebounds a game, but that's been pretty much it. He never became a franchise cornerstone, and in 2019, the Hornets kind of just came to terms with the fact that he might not even be a starter and put him on the bench. And this season he was waived by the Hornets, but was picked up by the Mavs in February, but he's literally averaging 0.4 points a game. Nova Vonleh was a pretty high-level prospect going into the 2014 NBA draft after being a 5-star recruit and averaging 11 points, 9 rebounds, and 1.4 blocks a game at Indiana. Numbers that may not look impressive on the surface level, but considering that he only played 26 to 27 minutes a game, if you scaled them up a little bit, they were more impressive than what met the eye. But once he came into the NBA, the Hornets were quick to give up on Noah Vonleh. In his rookie year, he was either in the G League or injured, and in the 25 games he was on the court, he averaged 3 points a game. And then in the offseason of just his rookie year, he was traded to Portland along with Gerald Henderson for Nicholas Batum, and since then has been a journeyman in the NBA. His best season was in 2019 where he averaged 8 points and 8 rebounds, but this season he signed with the Timberwolves, went back to averaging 4 a game, and then he was traded to the Nuggets as a bench warmer. Hasheem Thabeet was the second overall pick of the 2009 NBA draft after a dominant college career where he averaged a crazy 4.2 blocks a game in his 3 years at UConn. But I don't know if the Grizzlies just didn't give him enough of an opportunity or he just simply didn't earn that opportunity, but in his rookie year, he only started 13 games and played 13 minutes a game where he averaged 3 points and 4 rebounds, and by February, he was sent to the D League. And then the season after, he was traded to Houston after 45 games of averaging 1 point a game in 8 minutes, and then Houston traded him the season after he put up these same numbers. He played his last 2 seasons in 2013 and 2014, where he was a bench player on the Thunder, where he never put up more than 3 points a game. Now, Scott Labissiere was on that same wave Thon Maker was at when he was in high school, being that 6'11" big man that can shoot and handle the rock. He was a 5-star recruit, and some even saw him as a player capable of being the #1 overall pick in his draft class. But after a disappointing season at Kentucky, Scott went 28th overall in the 2016 draft to the Sacramento Kings. He was in and out of the G League his rookie year, but provided some solid bench production for the Kings. In 2019, he was traded to the Blazers, where he's been, again, a solid bench player. Now, young Eric Gordon on the Clippers was a beast. Early in his career, he was playing at a star level. After averaging 22 points and 4 assists on good shooting splits in 2011, many touted him as one of the best young players in the league, and arguably a top 5 shooting guard in the league. However, in 2012, he was sent to New Orleans as part of the CP3 trade, but missed almost all of his first season there due to a knee injury. During his tenure with the Pelicans, he never fulfilled that star role he was sent there to be, and was an injury-prone player in his tenure there. However, in 2017, he signed with the Houston Rockets, where he embraced the role as a bench player for the first time in his career and thrived in it, putting up 16 points a game and actually won 6th Man of the Year in his first year there. And since then, he's been a big part of one of the best teams in the league in the Houston Rockets. Greg Monroe was drafted as the 7th overall pick by the Detroit Pistons in 2010 as a player with a dominant low post game, and that he did. In his first 6 years in the league, he was a consistent 15 and 10 guy. I still remember the game that Low busted my ass with Greg Monroe in 2K. You know, shout out to Low if you're watching this. Man was a cheat code. Again, early in his career, Monroe, to a decent amount of people, had star potential and was actually producing the numbers as a player in his early 20s to back it up. But after the 2016 season, long story short, Greg Monroe got the Jahlil Okafor treatment. People stopped looking at low post bigs like Greg Monroe, and when that's really all he offers on the offensive end, on top of him not really being a good defender, he was immediately put on the bench, and in his last 2 years in the league, he played for 6 different teams in that time span. Needless to say, he is now out of the league. Like Greg Monroe, the Utah Jazz drafted Enes Kanter in 2011 to be a great low post presence. Now I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really have any hope for Kanter after he started only 2 games and averaged 5 to 7 points in his first 2 years in the league. And while Kanter has not been the star he was drafted to be, he's actually been a very solid big in his career, capable of giving you 12 to 14 points, 8 to 9 rebounds a game for the past 5 to 6 years. And despite being a god-awful defender and barely having any shooting abilities, which was the reason why players like Greg Monroe and Jahlil Okafor have been phased out of the league, Kanter has been such a good rebounder when he's on the floor and such an effective scorer that he's actually been a solid big. And if he wasn't such a bad defender, he'd probably get more playing time, which is pretty impressive despite not having the skill sets that most teams are looking for. When Jonas Valanciunas was drafted 5th overall to the Raptors, he was supposed to build on their core of DeMar DeRozan, Rudy Gay, and Kyle Lowry. He was that highly coveted overseas player that people hope to be the next Pau Gasol or the next Dirk. There's always one every year. And while Jonas never became a star per se, he's been a very solid player throughout his career. He's been giving teams 12 to 13 points and 9 to 10 rebounds a game ever since his 2nd year in the league, and is now on the Memphis Grizzlies having career numbers of 15 points and 11 rebounds on 59% from the field. Before everyone was yelling Curry when they were shooting long bomb threes, there was the great Jimmer Fredette. Every year, there's always that one player lighting up the college world and scoring at an elite level. One year it's Doug McDermott, another year it's Trae Young, another is Buddy Hield, and in 2011, it was Jimmer, as the BYU senior averaged 29 points a game, shooting 40% from 3 on 9 attempts a game, and was shooting bombs off the dribble. Bombs. However, in the NBA, the game just never translated. He was a small point guard, not a very good defender, or not a good defender, period, not a good passer, and he was a player who needed the ball in his hands to be the most effective, but simply wasn't good enough to be a #1 option of any team. And because of that, he only lasted 5 years in the league, bouncing around from team to team. However, he did attempt an NBA comeback in 2019, but only played 6 games, and we haven't seen him in the NBA ever since. Now, when the Cavs drafted Dion Waiters the year after they drafted Kyrie, I thought it was going to become a deadly combo, kind of like what John Wall and Bradley Beal have become in Washington. In his first 2 years, he showed promise, averaging 15 points and 16 rebounds respectively. However, after a terrible start to the 2015 season, the season where LeBron came back to Cleveland and had heavy title aspirations, Dion Waiters was sent to OKC in a trade where the Cavs landed Iman Shumpert and J.R. Smith. And in OKC, he didn't really play that well. But he did have a resurgent year in Miami and was a solid player in his time there. However, because of off-court issues and the injury problems he never played more than 50 games in any season with Miami. This season he was sent to the Grizzlies, but they eventually waived him, and he was picked up by the Lakers in March, but obviously has not played since. Now, Harry Giles has only been in the league for 3 years. Really only 2 because he missed all of his rookie year. So I want to make it clear, I'm not fully writing him off yet, but many forget that going into his freshman year at Duke, he was the #1 overall recruit of that class. However, he missed a majority of his senior year due to a torn ACL in his right knee, and then in college he missed a decent portion of it as well due to needing another surgery on his knee. But the fact that Harry Giles still went 20th overall in the first round after tearing his ACL in high school and having another surgery in his freshman year, and only put up 4 points off the bench at Duke, yet still went 20th overall in that draft, speaks to how good of a prospect he was. And so far in his career, he's been putting up 7 points and 4 rebounds off the bench for the Kings. Hopefully Harry Giles can build more on that. Now, a lot of good players came from the 2013 class, but the prospects at the top were disappointing. Obviously we had Anthony Bennett, but one of those players as well was Alex Len. He was in that lane of Greg Monroe, Enes Kanter, of being drafted for his low post abilities. Now, combine that with injury problems that sidelined him for a majority of his rookie year, and again the drastic shift in wanting stretch bigs in the league as a whole, and the fact that Alex Len just wasn't that good, Alex Len just never became a star, and given those other factors, the chance of him being one lessened even more. Now, luckily for Alex Len, he's played for the Suns and the Hawks his whole career. 2 teams so bad that he can actually get minutes. But this year, him and Jabari Parker were traded from Atlanta to Sacramento for Dwayne Dedmon. And since we already mentioned him, let's talk about Anthony Bennett. Anthony Bennett was the #1 overall pick of that draft, and quite frankly, I don't remember him being in the running for the #1 overall pick, which is why so many people were surprised when he was taken #1. And I know it's not his fault that he was drafted #1, but he was still projected to be in the top 10. And in his first 31 games in the league, he had 13 games where he scored 0 points. As a matter of fact, he probably had the worst start to any top 5 pick in league history, because in his first 7 NBA games, Anthony Bennett made 1 field goal. 1. And that 1 field goal didn't come until his 5th game. And in those 7 games, he went 1 of 21 from the field. 1 of 21. The season after, he was traded to Minnesota, then he went to Toronto and then Brooklyn, and was trash everywhere he went, and was out of the league in 4 years. Now, Dario Saric was actually the 12th pick of the 2014 NBA draft, but he didn't come to the NBA till 3 years after he was drafted. And he was actually in the running for Rookie of the Year with Joel Embiid and Malcolm Brogdon in his first year, as he averaged 13 points and 6 rebounds in his rookie year. And then in his second year, he improved a little more, going up to 15 points and 7 rebounds, and was shooting much better from the 3 at 39%. However, in his third year in the league, he was traded to Minnesota in a trade that sent Jimmy Butler to Philly, and then after that, he was traded to Phoenix. He's been a solid player for the teams he's played for, but the hype from his first 2 years did quickly die down after he was traded. And to close this series off, player number 50, Kyle Anderson. Now, when Kyle Anderson was drafted by the Spurs, a lot of people were excited. The Spurs have been known to always find that sleeper pick in the draft. Tony Parker was the 28th overall pick in his draft. Manu Ginobili was the 28th pick of the 2nd round of his draft. And a lot of people thought, including me, that Kyle Anderson could have followed in their footsteps after averaging 15 points, 7 assists, 9 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block in college on great shooting splits. But that just never came through. He was on the Spurs for 4 years and was a starter for a majority of his last year there, but he hasn't really been more than, 6 points and 4 to 5 rebounds a game. He's now on the Memphis Grizzlies, giving you right around that same production as well. If you guys like this video, go ahead and leave a like. This is probably the first time I've actually completed a series, and these videos do take a long time to make. This video is probably going to be another 20-minute video, and let me tell you, editing takes a long time. So if you want to support me, or if you like the video, go ahead and leave a like. Make sure to check out my podcast, Let's Keep It a Buck. We upload episodes every Monday, every week. Here's a little clip from the last episode.
Handle Al Horford. He could handle Al Horford.
Who's our big man coming off the bench?
Kuzma. Whoever the is Kuzma.
We don't have
Morris.
Man.
Morris.
Hey,
Kuzma.
Kuzma.
We can go sign DeMarcus Cousins, man. What you talking about? What you mean?
It's on iTunes, it's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, it's on Google Play. You name it, links will be in the description for that. Watch these 2 videos if you haven't already. But with that being said, I'm out. Peace.